Everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us on Elevenses with the reps at Diesel Bookstore. Every Wednesday, if you're joining us for the first time, we get together here and with our fabulous publishers representatives and our booksellers, and we talk about everything that's new, that's upcoming, that is bookly of interest, with our professionals who really know what they're talking about. Every Wednesday, I end up with a to be read list that's a lot longer than it was before we started. And everybody's got some fantastic books to talk to you about today. And I'm going to introduce everybody, and we're going to get going in one moment. But before we do that, I want to let you know what's going on at the store in the next week, because we have a fantastic packed schedule of events, which Mary knows all about. And let me just tell you quickly what's happening this week. Tonight, actually, we have Courtney Adamo discussing and signing The Family Home, Inspiring Ideas for a Home Filled with Joy. That's going to be tonight at Diesel at 6:30 p.m. So that is tonight, the 22nd of October. And then Thursday, tomorrow, Andrew Rubin will be at the store discussing and signing Hell or High Water. And joining him in conversation will be Greg Cope White. That's going to be tomorrow, October 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Event number 2. Then moving right along, we're very excited on Sunday, the 26th at 3 p.m. to welcome Angela Kinsey and Joshua Snyder. And they're having a meet and greet over there at the store at 3 p.m. and signing for You Can Make This. And it's a cookbook, 100 family favorite recipes. And that's going to be like a meet and greet, talking about food, getting hungry, just thinking about it. That's going to be Sunday the 26th at 3 p.m. And then the last event I want to tell you about happening within the next week is going to be next Tuesday. That's October 28th. And that's going to be at 6:30 p.m. at the store. And we are going to welcome Myriam Gurba. We'll be discussing and signing Poppy State, A Labyrinth of Plants, and A Story of Beginnings. And joining her in conversation will be Wendy Cheng. And if you watched Elevenses last week, you'd see the lovely Julia Callahan talking about this book. And it's a wonderful book, really interesting and different, unusual book. So you don't want to miss that. Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. That's Myriam Gurba with Poppy State. We have plenty more events planned. I can't tell you all about them right now. That's just the next week. But if you are interested and want to have a look, Joey, who's behind the scenes, post a link there, and you can just head on over to our website and have a look at all of the events we have coming up for you. So, having said that, let me introduce everybody who is going to be talking about books today. And I want to remind you that we'll post links in the chat area there, so you can go ahead and click on those at your leisure to order the books we're talking about today. And the books we are talking about today are going to be presented by Patricia Nelson from Princeton University Press. Thanks for joining us, Patricia. Will Gawronski from Columbia University Press Consortium. I've had lots of university presses in the house today, so, I'm going to try to act smart. And then rounding it up, we've got Mary with us. Mary is our events coordinator and knows all about what's happening coming up. So thank you for joining us, everybody. And thank you, Joey, behind the scenes, for posting all the links and producing everybody. So, well, let's get going. We've got a lot of books to talk about. Patricia, why don't you start us off?
Well, I'm going to start with a very handsome book. I wish I had a copy, but I've been at a lot of trade shows and I don't have it with me anymore. But it's called Killing the Dead. This is a pretty impressive and immense book on vampire epidemics from Mesopotamia to the New World. The book is very substantial and exciting. It's a history of vampire panics across cultures and down through the millennia, and how, as he thinks of it, it's better to kill the dead than to kill the living. So this looks at a vast length of time and moves from Scotland to China to Iceland to West Africa. We've had many problems with the problematic dead. We felt that we must weigh them down with stones or other even more ghoulish practices to keep them in their graves. Why is this so? The earliest references go back to ancient Mesopotamia. There's vampire all the way up to the current moment. This book comes up to Romania in 2019, where we still have disturbed approaches to burying the dead, making sure they stay down. It highlights a kind of a collective fear of the dangerous dead. There's a lot of attention, particularly to medieval Europe and to places like Saxony, Bohemia, Moravia, the Balkans, as you might imagine. There's a lot of attention to female vampires. It brings to mind that vampires are not bloodsuckers. This was sort of a 19th century literary convention, but they can be very annoying, wear chainmail, be plump and rooty, eat local livestock, and make annoying chewing sounds. So there's many reasons to be disturbed by them. The book has had some fantastic reviews. It was in the Wall Street Journal this week and in History Today, which I think rather wonderfully says the book is pleasingly Daunish, slightly obsessional feel that makes me think of a Victorian armchair anthropologist who has gathered and synthesized vast quantities of arcane materials. And the book does have a kind of an outrageously thorough and immense quality. It covers a lot of cultural breadth, from female demons of Assyria to Aswang of Filipino folklore to what he calls the vampire belt, where it's possible that shamans have created an interstitial space where the dead can physically return. So if you're ready for the holidays and anxious about the dead, this is your book, Killing the Dead.
Well, I'm not surprised that you have given all your copies of this one away. I
was all really, I could do to keep it on the table.
I'm sure. This looks fantastic. I love it. This and sounds like it has really broad appeal, and I am absolutely in the camp that annoying chewing sounds would be worse than blood sucking, I think. So what a fantastic book. And it sounds like it's, kind of erudite without being inaccessible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, he's a medievalist, and this seems to be a work of love. He's sort of emeritus and giving it his all.
Right. And I think he'll probably be rewarded and a great time for it. And I think there's, and probably a lot of other aspiring writers using it for research, I would think. So
I can see the fantasy zone leaping on this book. Yes,
absolutely. All right. Great first pick, Patricia. Thank you. Mary, gonna pop over to you. What do you got?
Okay, so my first one is Indian Country by Shobha Rao. And I actually hosted Shobha down here in Del Mar, but she's just a wonderful, wonderful person. She's lovely. She's a really great writer, and I had not read any of her books before. And so this one came out, and I couldn't put it down. So it's an easy read, but it's beautifully written. She just has really great prose, and it's about a couple from India, a young couple who, it's modern times, it's not in the past, but they have an arranged marriage sort of that they fall into. They don't really think it's going to happen. Then he decides he's moving to America to take a job as a hydraulic engineer, and their arranged marriage comes up kind of through some other circumstances in the family. And this girl has to go with him and get married to him, and she's never even met him. And it happens within days. And she moves to America, and she has a job working with trafficked and children who are on the street children in India. And so she has to give up her life and move. And they move to Montana, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it's just it just has so many themes running through it about water and numbers, and there's short historical stories throughout that she weaves in about the place before them. And Indian country kind of takes the East Indians and the Native Americans and combines it to that story. And there's a lot that happens in here. There's a murder, a body shows up in the river. There's lots of things that are going on, and they want to blame, all the white people want to blame the East Indian and the Native Americans. And so there's a lot of historical context in it, but there's current day things that are going on with racial injustice. And so it's just really beautifully written though. So it's, I just loved it. Wonderful book.
I have got to read this book.
Yeah,
this
you
sounds
do.
fantastic. This is already 2 books, and we like barely getting started. And I already have 2 books like I have to read today. This sounds wonderful and such an interesting scope. I mean, you kept, when you got to water and numbers, I was like, okay, this sounds really great. Seeing a lot of and there is a resurgence of I think Indian authors lately. I've been seeing. I mean, there's always a few books circulating that I'm reading, but it seems like there's a lot that are sort of looking at this, bridging the divide between India and the relocating and the various places in the United States. So this sounds fantastic. It sounds like it's really got. It always helps when the author's really nice too.
Yeah, she is. It does.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Mary. All right. Well, let's hear about your first book.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. So I'm just back from the trade shows too that Patricia was mentioning, and I've sort of scarfed a few things with me to talk about from the shows. So mostly I've got art books to talk about, except the very first one, which is a book that came out last summer, and it is What We Eat, A Global History of Food. Here comes the cover. This is from Columbia University Press. It's a really wonderful book that's basically a collection of short pieces about all different types of food and their histories. So it's set up alphabetically from A to Z, and it's just to give you an idea, did I say this is a translation from the French? It was originally published in French. This is a translation. It's all different writers, and they're each writing on a specific food. So there's things like the history of bagels. There's an essay on that. There's something on cassoulet. There's something on ceviche. What else? Dim sum is in here. Fish and chips and their history. Christmas pudding, French fries, all of this stuff. So it's really great to go through, and they have these kind of wonderful little graphics at the beginning of each chapter too. So it's a terrific book for somebody who's interested in food in general, or for people who want to dig a little bit deeper and to know the background behind these things. Lots of fun. It's a paperback original, and it came out in July, so it's been around, but I think it'll be a really great book going into the holiday season too. It's just a nice little thing to give to the food lover on your list. So available now.
This is my favorite kind of book. I love this kind of book. I have a few of them already, and you just to find out, and actually makes a difference in how you prepare food. A lot of times when you know the origins of certain dishes and how they started and where certain things came from. I mean, it does for me anyway.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, like finding out how pies came into existence, which the pastry used to be fairly inedible, and it was basically used to preserve what was in it, because there was no refrigeration, so they put stuff in this like flour and water combination and salt, and it kept it. And then they called those things coffins. Coffins, right? Patricia knows, she's nodding. And then eventually it evolved so that you ate the whole thing, and it was like a combined meal with eating the coffin as well. But it's fascinating.
I love the way you're bringing this back to Halloween.
Yes, that was intentional. Thank you, Will. It's spooky season. Anyway, great book, and like you said, I think a fantastic gift as well. So lots of foodies out there. Thank you, Will.
Sure.
Back to you, Patricia.
Well, I do like a pastry coffin. I'm sure that would be, I've heard that term. I'm looking at a book that just came out. It's called The Wake of the HMS Challenger. It's a very attractive book, revisiting the legendary Victorian voyage of the HMS Challenger 150 years ago, and looking again at the ocean today. We have a wonderful writer, Dylan D'Arcy Wood. He's kind of a ecological adventurer and has written on Tambora, volcanic eruption on the Antarctic, and now on the HMS Challenger. So originally, the Challenger was a small British warship that was converted into the first floating laboratory in 1872, and it left Portsmouth on a 4-year voyage with the mission to chart the ocean floor, measure ocean temperatures, collect marine specimens, all at a time when Darwin's theory was new, when all of this, was pulling together, filled with adventure and new knowledge. And now he returns to a number of these places, each chapter kind of riveted to a particular creature, and recaps what happened and what the ocean is like now. The book is quite attractive. So, for example, here is a chapter called The Heyday of the Octopus, where he is in the Antarctica, and he gives us, information on that period, on the people there. It was March of 1874, and the current possible status of the octopus. For here, the salmon's pilgrimage goes to Yokohama, where somewhat ironically, the HMS Challenger discovered the Asian salmon, which in fact had been fished and eaten in Asia for centuries, but it was their discovery. The Challenger did many things. They sort of inadvertently discovered the Mariana Trench near Guam. Now we would say that even that trench is not immune from modern microplastics. And that is kind of the message conveyed by the book, that this pristine ocean of 150 years ago has been rather radically transformed very quickly. So it's a kind of an ecological history. It reads extremely well. I loved the chapter called Dream of Green Turtles, which, as you know, have been really for a very long time over hunted or fished. That he's at Ascension Island near Fiji. So there's travel, adventure, there's geography, there's oceanography, there's comparative environmental history, and it's just beautifully written. It's a nice book.
Well, another one added to my list. Thank you, Patricia. Actually, I know a lot of people who would really enjoy this book. It's got everything. It's got ships, adventures, and the ecological angle, which I think is really, really interesting. And it is beautiful. It looks absolutely beautiful inside. And it's a nice size as well. It's not like a weighty tome. So another fabulous gift idea. Thank you, Patricia. Mary, back to you.
Okay, so my next one, it doesn't come out for a little bit, but Deborah and I were talking about it. She actually recommended it to me, and then I got an ARC,
which I forgot.
Yeah. Tell me when you get it, you have to read this, and it's The Beheading Game by Rebecca Lehman or Lehman. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but okay. So this book is basically, we all know what happened to Anne Boleyn and her beheading, but what if she woke up in her coffin with her head between her knees, and she wakes up and is able to get out of the coffin and sew her head back on and go after the king for revenge. So it's amazing. Like, just the idea of it, the hook of it, you can't not read it. I think I had to read it once Deborah told me about it. And then when I received it in the mail, it's like, wow, this is this is meant to be to read it, right? So
Absolutely.
I said maybe it should be a required reading for all women, because throughout history, you know, it kind of says as women are known to be mouthy and then they're punished for it. And she was sort of the ultimate, maybe the one that was punished the most, losing her head for it. And she was definitely mouthy, and there's a lot about that in the book. And so just the idea that what if that could happen. Obviously, it's a little fantasy, a lot of fantasy, a little, you know, it's a reworking of the story, of course, which I always love. When somebody has the imagination to pull that off, because it's sort of just like the idea, what if? But just that if she could have had any revenge or any say or anything that she could have done in this, and that's throughout history with all the women that have been wronged. So it's just kind of an interesting idea. And I don't want to say what happens, but you can probably guess.
No, we don't want to say what happens.
But
We'll talk about it again, because it's not. It doesn't actually go on sale until I think in
March,
the early spring. Yeah, the early spring. So we'll talk about it again. But it is an irresistible premise.
Yes.
That's what I thought. And when okay, Anne Boleyn wakes up, sews her head back on, and decides to go kill the king. Okay. All right. But I want to mention, so I thought, well, it could go any way, you know, and I went into it completely, I sort of anticipated a certain style, I guess. And I was very surprised. She, the author, Rebecca Lehman, is a poet.
Yeah.
And she's published books of poetry before. She did a tremendous amount of research for this book, and it is absolutely beautifully written. It's incredibly poetic. So the language is, if nothing else, it's just worth reading for her beautiful prose, which is very poetic. And then we will talk about it again, so I won't get too deeply into. But all of the themes you mentioned, she's covering a lot of ground, not just this idea of, you know, a reanimated Anne Boleyn. So she's covering a lot of ideas here about women, and, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same, kind of a thing. But also, Anne Boleyn discovers, you know, sort of traipsing around incognito, a lot of things about London and the way things work that she didn't from her perspective. So I'm glad you mentioned it, Mary. I completely forgot that I told you about it.
I do.
Yeah, but really so interesting. A great book, and we'll talk about it again. So thanks for bringing that one up.
Yeah.
Will.
Okay, so now I have my art books. So I've got a few of these that are pretty exciting. So my first one is one that's new, just coming out now. It's Black Artists in Their Own Words. This is from University of California Press. Really fantastic collection. So it's put together by Lisa Farrington, who's a professor emerita at City University in New York, but she also holds a position at Howard University, and she's one of the top experts on African American arts writing today, and has written extensively about the history of. This is actually a book, she put this together, she's the editor of it, that is, as the title suggests, it's the artists actually in their own words. So it's essays, speeches, interviews, sometimes there's sort of poetry stuff in here as well, by artists set up chronologically describing their own work and how they think it fits into the art world, you know, more broadly, or the Black experience more broadly. It's a fantastic collection. She's got, it starts with, you know, the 19th century, and then she spends time in the Harlem Renaissance. Romare Bearden is in here, Jacob Lawrence. Then she gets a little further into the Black arts movement. There's a lot of stuff about Southern California. Lorraine O'Grady's in here. Who else? Carl Walker, Amy Sherald. It goes pretty much right up to the present day. So it's just a great anthology of writing. Mostly it's not a super heavily illustrated book. There is a color insert section, which is really impressive in the middle of the book. But for the most part, it's the actual pieces themselves with some illustrations mixed in throughout. So just a fantastic book to have if this is an area that interests you, or if you're interested in Black history more broadly. This will be great for that too. And a lot of these things are very hard to find, I would say, like if you didn't have them in one place. So it's just great to have this all collected in this one volume. This just went on sale. It's a paperback original, so from University of California Press.
I really love the University of California Press. They put out such great books. And like a book like this, and you just don't find them, but University of California Press is always doing fantastic books like this. What a wonderful collection, and presented in such an interesting way, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's on the list because I know somebody who wants this book and needs this book. So, all right. I've added it to the list. Thank you, Will.
Sure.
Patricia, back to you.
Well, I do have to mention that beheading Anne Boleyn was not sufficient to keep her down. And this just brings up the problem of vampires even more intensely, that it can really be tough.
The dead don't stay dead.
No, they don't. I have a really interesting, this is a very University Press book, definitely on the scholarly side, and yet fascinating. It's called Surviving Rome. This is a new economic history of the 90%. So we're used to thinking about those gorgeous marble villas and fountains and collections of exquisite Greek statuary and vast gardens, but that is the uppermost crust of Roman society. This deeply humane way of using economics gets us down to the craftsmen, the seasonal workers, the gig workers, the slaves, the way that life actually worked in Rome. A lot of it has to do with how you would derive this information from archaeology, from graffiti, from surviving objects. It's a really exciting look at ancient Rome's working class, and also describes what she talks about as a consumer revolution, how different classes of people would understand and acquire different kinds of objects. So it's really getting away from a history of Rome as a history of the rich, and it is a history written about labor and how ordinary people survive. It's very interesting about these objects, about tools, whether you would, what kind of tools and axes and knives and various things you would have. I thought it was very interesting that she said that light was actually a commodity. If you had light to continue work, if you owned a lamp, if you had a very small number of people actually had these ceramic lamps. Only 1% of British farms excavated. That sort of information you see here, just to make sure we know what we're getting into, that we have handy graphs and lots of information throughout. I was fascinated by a description of what she calls the load-carrying mother. This is looking closely at an excavation in Pompeii, which found a young woman who was particularly short and whose young body showed many signs of damage from carrying heavy burdens, her back, her shoulder, and really calling to mind, as she explains, that 90% of people really relied on the work of the body. Made me think of the incredible photographs of Sebastião Salgado, in the sense of work, of effort throughout. It's just a totally different book, but it's well written. She talks about the grit and hustle of everyday life. She really reveals a great deal about what we can know and how we might be able to know it. I was rather fascinated. I can't find the reference here. I thought I had marked it somewhere, that in clearing the ground for the new European Disney World, they found more information than they had in most archaeological deliberate sites. That more new places, more new information of common people in Britain, in Europe, have come together in this book. So Surviving Rome, it's magnificently endorsed by Peter Brown. I don't really see how you could do any more grandly endorsed than by Peter Brown on the ancient world, and showing a new, as he calls it, an entirely fresh look at Roman society.
This is so interesting, Patricia, and I think so relevant at the moment, looking at labor and civilizations and that collapsed. I don't know why that sort of comes to mind right now, but I recently read a book titled Goliath's Curse by Luke Kemp. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but I've just been talking to everybody I know about it, and that is quite dense, and takes some effort to get through, but it's incredibly interesting, and it just talks about how civilizations collapse over time and come back up, and how that reflects on the modern time. And this is one of the civilizations, of course, that he talks about, and how it happened, as it does with upper classes taking control, and inequities in economics and that kind of thing, and what happens when these civilizations do collapse. And this, it seems like it shines a focus right on that area, which is absolutely fascinating and really relevant, I think, to our modern times. So I would, you said it's scholarly, which for me means, okay, I have to take it a small piece at a time, but those anecdotes that you mentioned are completely fascinating. It's stuff you don't think about, but helps you understand what's happening in, right now. So I guess I'll get a copy for Gabe. He'll like it. He'll read it. Fantastic. Thank you, Patricia. All right, Mary.
All right. So my next one, I think probably it's been out a little bit, but it's My Friends by Frederick Bachman. I don't have a copy with me. I actually listened to it, and the audiobook was wonderful, but and I listened, and I was on a plane, and I was crying, as he makes you do almost immediately, and laughing. Frederick Bachman, I mean, what can you say? I love everything that he writes. I just think he has this way of looking at people and the messiness of life, but also all of the joy and like wonderful parts of life and people. Somehow he puts that in, and it doesn't feel like he's lecturing, but you learn so much from him. And this book is about a group of friends who become friends as in their childhood, when they are all kind of in abusive, different situations in their homes, and they find each other and become like family. And one of the children is an artist, and he paints a picture of them, and it becomes really famous. And then a girl 25 years into the future from that finds this somehow, and I won't say how, gets this painting and tries to find out all about it and the history of it with these friends, and becomes friends with them. And it's so beautiful and moving and lovely. And if you just want to, I mean, Frederick Bachman, has anyone looked at his Instagram or followed him? He's so funny, and just everything he says, it's like he's telling you something about life and people. And that's what he does in his books. And I just love him. So this is a great one.
Thanks for talking about this one also, Mary, because I think while Frederick Bachman has a huge fan base, there's still there's a lot of readers out there who aren't familiar with his work or how he writes. So it's a great place to start if you haven't read him before. So and it's been out a while. It's in paperback now.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know people who have not read anything by him, and they're reading this one as the first one, but also saying they were kind of scared to read something from him because everyone loves it? And what if they don't love it? And then everyone loves it. So there you go.
Oh, that's interesting thought. I didn't. Yeah, I actually didn't think about that.
I've never had that where somebody tells me, I love a book, you should read it. And then I think, well, I'm scared to read it because I might really like it. Like what? But anyway, I've heard that. I've heard that from people. That's actually a thing. So
that's a thing. Interesting. All right, I'm gonna have to think about that. Thank you, Mary. Well,
Okay, so my next one, this is for Deborah, because I know she's going to be excited about this one. So another book from University of California Press, and one I'm just thrilled to have a copy of now. It's a Wayne Thiebaud book. This is Wayne Thiebaud, Art Comes from Art, and this is a catalog to an exhibition that was at the Palace of the Legion of Honor this summer of his work. It's a really spectacular looking book, which I told everyone it would be, but I didn't actually know until I went to the fall trade shows and I got one. So like it really is. It looks incredible. The production was done by the Fine Arts Museums in San Francisco, as well as the University of California Press as a joint project. So the concept of the book and of the exhibition is just fantastic. It's pairing his work with other works from art history that have really influenced him, other artists and their particular things that they've done, and looking at the influence of those two things. And it has really made me see his work in a completely different light. I can give you some examples that'll just show you exactly what I mean. So, for instance, here is the Monet haystacks, which we all know, which he writes about his love of that. And then here are his cupcakes. So when you look at them together, you can see like, well, I see the influence of that to that, or for instance, here is a Cézanne of a man in his library, and then next to it is one of Thiebaud's works. So again, you can see it's extremely similar. A few of these, like I never would have thought of this, and now that I see it, it's going to completely change the way I look at that painting forever. Like, I have to find this one. Oh, this isn't the one, but let me show you this. This is a Munch painting, and then one of his, Thiebaud. So again, like the use of color, the ways that the figures are represented. Okay, here's the one. So this Montaigne painting of the dead Christ, where his feet are sort of right up front, and there's a sort of foreshortening of the body next to this. And he writes, actually, like it'll have a little thing in here where he said how he's always loved this painting and just the way that the body is shaped and how prominent the feet are, and that really influenced him when he did this particular painting. I mean, it's just, the whole book is like that. It's just full of these incredible rethinkings of what these paintings are and where they came from, and the influences that he's had from all of these different artists, right up through, Ellsworth Kelly and Francis Bacon, people like that are in here too. So it's really a phenomenal book. This came out during the summer, so it's still around, and it's just a gorgeous book. So if you're looking for a big, beautiful art book to give this holiday season, this is a good one.
I'm looking to be given that book. I'm gonna have to put the word out. I'm such a huge fan of his. I have been. He was working right up until, and he's a California artist. Very proud to have him as a native son. And he was working right up until his death at 102, I think he was, when he passed away. And Patricia, you can help me out here. You probably know it was recently. I think it was in the last 3 years he passed away. But always been a huge fan of his work, and then delving a little bit and beyond the cakes and the, these, although I could just look at those forever and ever. But a lot of people don't know that he did these amazing landscapes and portraits and just gorgeous brushwork and movement in all of his paintings. Is like incredible.
Yeah,
So,
here's the Ellsworth Kelly and then his landscape that has a very similar
Yeah.
to it. So there you
Yeah.
go. I mean, like the way that he was able to bring in abstract images into his landscapes. And
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I've introduced many people to his work, and who didn't really know about him, and who, you force beyond like, well, it's just pictures of cakes on a thing. No, it's not. Look deeper. So I'm very excited about this book. Thank you, Elle. I'll have to start telling people to get it for me. Okay. All right, Patricia, why don't you start off our last round of the day?
Yeah, I love that. So expansive on what I knew of his art. And then the Monet cupcakes are pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
Princeton has a really wonderful ongoing series called Ancient Wisdom for Modern Readers. They're small, uncondescending books of advice from the ancients, and many of them have been in Greek and Roman. So we've had Greek and Latin. So we've had Seneca on how to die, we've had Sappho and others, how to be queer. But the series is starting to move out, and I have a couple of new ones that are kind of exciting and a little different. The first is How to Feel. This is the Buddha. The facing pages are in Pali, and our editor, Maria Hine, and translator, has a deep understanding of emotion as we would think of it in Buddhism, with these extracts from the Buddha and from the Four Noble Truths, the meaning of suffering, and how we might live well in this world with a better understanding of our emotions. The second one is truly a surprise. It's called How to Be Grateful. And this one is translated from the Nahuatl, which would be the Aztec language, as it was transcribed by the Spanish friars. So it's a really interesting language to look at. You won't be able to see that, but the facing pages in Nahuatl are fascinating. I find the facing pages always so interesting. Not that I would ever be able to read them, but just the presence of the original text is very gratifying. This text was a kind of advice on handle respect for elders and deep courtesies, and comes with an interesting preface on Nahuatl and Aztec. I just happened upon a little extract thinking of courtesy. This is a nobleman of the court of the king greeting the recently married queen. O our mistress, O noble woman, O lady, O precious one, O precious personage, O precious jewel, O green stone, O bracelet, O fine turquoise, many greetings. So, how to behave properly in Aztec.
This is such a fantastic series. We do so well with this series at the store. And I think everybody does who has them. I think people pick them up thinking, oh, it's, there's a lot of sort of inspirational impulse counter types of books, and they pick them up thinking it's sort of that. And then once they're hooked, they really get deeper into the focus of the books, of the works of these specific people and translations and where they come from. And I highly recommend all of them, but I haven't seen the Buddha one yet, and or this other one, which looks absolutely fantastic. So a couple of really great additions I'd recommend to absolutely anybody. And also another great gift idea. So wonderful. Those are good looking, Patricia. I forgot about that series until you mentioned it right now. That was yours. That was your series. They're really great. They're nice and small, and really easy to pick up. So, thanks, Patricia. Mary, you have a last book of the day.
Yeah. Okay. So I do, and it's not scholarly or anything, but it might be a really good Christmas gift. I thought it's it's called Sitting with Dogs by Rocky Kanaka. And it's the story, 9 different stories. I don't know if anyone has watched him on Instagram. He basically goes into shelters, pounds, whatever, and he finds the dogs that are abused, neglected, too scared to to be with people, to not talk to them, obviously, to be with people or have them touch them or be near. And he sits with them until they're comfortable, and so that they can be adopted. So I met him too, and he lives here in Fallbrook, where I live actually, and he is building a farm in Oceanside where people are going to be able to come. He's going to have a coffee shop there because his first dog was Flip that he rescued, and so they're calling it Flip's Farm, and he's making coffee on the farm, and they're going to sell that and have like a cafe and a place where dogs can go to recover and then be adopted. And so it's for anybody who loves dogs, and we all know somebody in our lives, at least one or two people, if you want a good gift for Christmas, because he is raising money for this rescue. And his stories on Instagram are tear-jerking. Of course, you will probably tear up watching this, but the stories in it for the 9 dogs are wonderful stories of these rescues. And he is a really neat person, him and his wife, and what they've done for all of these animals. So
I've written it down. I mean, I have to pick up a copy for my son, who absolutely loves and adores dogs and and imagines their stories every dog he sees. So I'm gonna pick that up for him.
oh yeah, well, he needs to watch the Instagram too and see. 'Cause
Yeah, I'll tell him. Yeah, I'll tell him about that as well.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that combination in there to see it. Who doesn't love dogs? If a person doesn't love dogs, there's definitely something wrong with them.
Yeah.
I think. And I'm not excluding cat lovers, but I mean, really, if you say, if you can't stand a dog, I don't know. You haven't met the right dog, I guess. But what a great book, or great gift idea. DK does a wonderful, they really do a great job, I think, with their books. They're very accessible, easy to read, nicely laid out. And so a really great gift. Okay, I've got so far 12 books I'm gotta buy. So, cool. Okay. Great. The only one I'm not buying is the Batting Game so far. Okay. Thank you, Mary. Will, why don't you wrap it up for the day for us?
Okay, so my last book is another art book, and this is kind of a deep cut. This is an older book from 10 years ago, but it's been really popular all of a sudden for reasons that will be obvious. It's David Lynch, The Unified Field, published by University of California Press back in 2015. So this is a catalog to a show that was at the Pennsylvania Academy of Arts back then. And so it was a co-pub between the museum and UC Press. David Lynch's paintings and drawings, works on paper, all of this stuff. I didn't know this, but David Lynch was actually trained as a visual artist before he moved into film. So he's from the West, he's from Montana, but he went to school, to art school in Boston, and then eventually at the Pennsylvania Academy of Arts, where the exhibition was held. And so the book collects work that he created between 1965, I think it starts, to 2015 when the exhibition was held. It's completely interesting, and you can totally see that it's David Lynch in terms of the style and the subject matter and that kind of thing. So for David Lynch lovers, this is just a really great book to have. Here's some of his early work, if you can see this, which I think is very kind of Francis Bacon-like, some of this. This is from the 60s. So there's paintings, there's drawings, there's all kinds of mixed media things. A lot of it is themes that are familiar if you know his film. So there's a lot of the mysterious, the sort of weird and dark things that sort of imply violence without actually showing it. So some of that. To show a couple of things. Okay, here's one. Dark humor is part of it too. So this is a piece called "I Burn Pine Cone and Throw It in Your House," which is done. It's a large piece done on cardboard, and it has little lights in the background. So it's behind glass originally, the actual work. So large scale thing. there's a lot of things about fire in here. There's stuff about, here's another one, boy lights fire with this, oops, boy with the stick hands, the really long stick hands, and again, like the light fixtures through there. Really just like an incredible mix of all kinds of things that go right up to, 2015. So, you know, it's pretty late into his time doing this kind of work, but just full color all the way throughout, really gorgeous book. It's got 95 different works in it. So the book's still available, and I've been seeing a lot of reorders on it, you know, all of a sudden, of course, since he passed away. So it's a great book if you're looking for something for the film fan or David Lynch fan or any of that kind of stuff in your holiday list. This is a great one.
I agree. And, you know, whenever you have somebody whose name has become an adjective for a certain, you know, when you say Lynchian,
Right.
that's what you're getting, I think,
Right.
perfectly. And if you're familiar with David Lynch at all, I think that's immediately what is evoked, right? And he really has a very strong foothold in the cultural zeitgeist. Well, he does for me anyway. And everybody else is nodding, so I'm assuming for all of you as well. But I didn't know. I've not seen this book actually. Well, and that looks like a great. That's a wonderful gift, I think.
Yeah, and it's I didn't actually know that it existed because that was before I had a connection to University of California Press. But after he died, it just started kind of coming up to the top of
Right.
A few museum stores asked about it, and so it's still available in beautiful looking books. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Will. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today with such a absolutely fantastic collection of books. I'm so excited about all of these books today. I'm busy scribbling things down as you've been talking, more than usual, actually. Yeah, if that's possible. So a wonderful collection of books, and a lot to think about, and a lot of books to put on your gift list today. So thank you so much for joining us, Patricia Nelson from Princeton University Press, Will Gawronski from Columbia University Press, and Mary over there down here in Del Mar for your picks as well. And thank you, Joey, behind the scenes for posting all the links. We are going to be back again next week. We'll be right on the edge of Halloween, so I'm anticipating more spooky season books and more fantastic reps and booksellers. So I hope you will all come back and join us then again next week. And until then, everybody have a great week. Happy reading. I know we've given you a lot to think about today, so enjoy. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.